As an entrepreneur, what do you want to know about AI?
It's time to wield this new technology to create the workplace and the work life that you want.
Please welcome Reid Hoffman.
Part of the way that I've been describing artificial intelligence is a steam engine of the mind.
The fear was around copying or plagiarism.
When I think about all of the possibilities with AI, honestly, I get a little overwhelmed.
I think of AI as really like an additional assistant.
At Bottle, we integrate AI with our marketing and customer support.
What do you think will be the best way forward with this?
This is Masters of Scale.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for attending the Masters of Scale live strategy session presented in alliance with Capital One Business. Hello, all. My name is Jodine Dorsey. I'm the VP of Live Events here at Wait What, the company behind Masters of Scale. If you're joining us for the first time, thank you. We're excited that you're here. Let me tell you a little bit about what you're about to experience. Strategy Session is a live event series where the Masters of Scale community gathers to meet, collaborate, and learn. We do this alongside one another in a digital space. We've got an amazing program for you tonight. First up, our host will take a couple of questions from up-and-coming entrepreneurs. Then she'll go into a live, in-depth workshop with an amazing founder and move into a fireside chat with a Harvard Business School professor centered around AI. Now, as many of you know, every strategy session is built around a central theme that helps us center the conversation and go deep with specific takeaways that benefit you. To introduce this month's theme, I'm happy to share a short video from the Executive Vice President of Capital One Business, Mr. David Rapkin. David, take it away.
Thanks, Jodine. At Capital One Business, we love partnering with entrepreneurs who are looking to the future, imagining new ways to integrate the latest technology into their organizations. Last month's strategy session, focusing on AI, gave us so much food for thought that we didn't want the conversation to stop. So with that, I'm happy to announce that the theme for tonight's strategy session is a continuation of our theme from May, AI Leading Change. It's going to be a great session, and be sure to stick around until the end of the show for a special giveaway from Capital One Business. You won't want to miss it. Okay, Jodine, let's start the show.
Wait a minute. Did I hear special giveaway? Ooh, can't wait to see what that's about. Until then, to kick things off, let's introduce our host for the evening. Dr. Rana el Kaliouby is an expert and pioneer in the field of emotion AI. She's the co-founder of Blue Tulip Ventures and an investor in early-stage startups building human-centric AI that is good for people, planet, and is ethical. Hi, Rana.
Hi, Jodine. So excited to be the host.
You were so amazing in December. You know we had to bring you back.
It was fun. Looking forward to tonight.
Yes. So a lot of our attendees were here for last month's strategy session with the Masters of Scale founding host, Reid Hoffman. And I'm so grateful that you're bringing your AI insights to the Masters of Scale conversation. I'd love to start off with a few rapid fire questions for you, Rana. Consider this an appetizer, if you will. We have two amazing entrepreneurs who sent their questions over video. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Hi, Rana. My name is Yinka Iyinolakan. I'm a PhD researcher focused on computational media for inclusive communication. Also, as the co-founder of CDAO AI, we're pioneering multilingual models and tools to support education in low-resource languages, with focus on conversational AI to enhance comprehension. So here's my question. Given that education boards with established curriculum are notoriously difficult to disrupt, what are your insights on effectively advocating for AI in these spaces? Thank you.
Hi, Yinka. Thank you for your question and congratulations on launching CDAO.ai. I love that you are bridging the digital divide and closing this digital divide in Africa, and I love that you're leveraging AI to do that. I especially love that you are leveraging local data to create these multilingual models. I'm originally from Egypt. I speak Egyptian/Arabic. And it's great to see focus on this local subpopulations. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. These kind of large language models that are curated and based on data that is very specific to subpopulations. So I wouldn't worry about education boards. I really think you should focus on building traction and going direct to the consumer. And once you have traction, that's going to give you leverage as you negotiate with local education organizations and kind of, convincing them to take this on. But I'm excited to follow what you're doing. I tried CDial myself and it was great. All right, let's bring Jodine back.
And here I am. And I have not tried CDial.ai just yet, but I'm so looking forward to trying it for myself. And Rana, one thing about Yinka that I want to make sure that people know is that he is the winner of the 2023 Black Ambition Prize. So shout out to Felicia Hatcher and her team. I'm really excited about what they're doing for founders.
Amazing.
Let's hear from our second entrepreneur, and that's Jano McKay. He's the executive director and co-founder of Same Same. It's an organization that provides mental health support for the LGBTQ plus youth in Global South. Same Same is also an alum of Fast Forward's Accelerator for Tech Nonprofits. Here's Jano's question for you.
Hi, Rana. I'm Jono, and I'm the co-founder and executive director at Same Same. We use digital technologies like AI to provide mental health support to LGBTQI plus young people living in places where it is sometimes difficult or even illegal to be different. We use LLMs to help us classify the messages that we get from users, formulate responses, and direct them to the support that they need when they need it. But as they, and users all over the world, are becoming more familiar with LLMs and the way they can be used to manipulate and misinform, I'm wondering, how can organizations and businesses like ours establish trust in the LLMs that we are building and using?
Thank you, Jono, for your question. And again, congratulations on building Same Same. I want to draw on my experience at Affectiva, which is the company I spun out of MIT. We were in the emotion AI space, which we had to really focus on this concept of trust and transparency with the users. And the way we did that is by being transparent. We were very open about what kind of data do we use to train our models? What kind of data do we use to validate our models? What are our core values, right, as a company? How do we respect a person's privacy? All of these questions we were very transparent about, and I would encourage you to do the same. I also think you have a unique opportunity to allow the users of Same Same to give you feedback, which would then allow you to reiterate and optimize your responses and your models. So I think that would be the way to go. Keep us posted on your progress.
Absolutely. Rana, transparency. It's so key as people start to get familiar with AI. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think as consumers become more savvy too, the companies that are transparent and are prioritizing trust and ethics, I think are going to win.
Well, thank you to both Yinka and Jano for those thought-provoking questions. Rana, these rapid-fire segments are so insightful, and I hope you're ready to move to a more on-your-feet type of advice, because it's time for this evening's workshop.
Let's do it.
During this next segment, you'll be working one-on-one with a business owner in real time, answering questions and offering guidance in a number of different areas. Some of their questions relate to AI and some don't. So those of you in the audience will hear echoes of similar issues you've been facing, and hopefully we have answers that will help you navigate those challenges. So joining us tonight for tonight's workshop is Chloe Duckworth. She's the co-founder and CEO of Valence Vibrations. Valence Vibrations develops AI software that performs real-time emotional analytics of vocal tone. This helps people communicate better across screens and across demographics. The idea for the company was born out of the pandemic. Chloe saw the negative impact that online learning was having on some of her classmates at USC. Valence started by specifically helping neurodivergent users on an individual consumer level. Now they help people across entire organizations improve their emotional communication. I'm going to step away, but please welcome Chloe Duckworth.
Hi, Chloe. It's so good to see you.
Hi, Rana. So great to be here.
Yeah. So I've been closely following your journey and Valence, which, by the way, Valence, for those of you who don't know, is a way to describe emotions. So emotions can have a positive valence or a negative valence. It's a very emotion-specific word. A lot of people are not familiar with it. So I love the name. What you're doing is right up my wheelhouse, and I'm so excited to be in conversation with you today. Why don't you start by telling us what exactly does valence vibrations do and how you got into this space?
Sure, thank you. So last year, Valence launched our enterprise emotion APIs, trying to interpret vocal tone across people and improve emotional communication across screens and different demographics of people, from different accents to neurotypes, etc. And it's brought up an important question that I'd love your perspective on. I think in terms of sort of where we're at in the generative AI boom and AI innovation in general, a lot of companies are selling a new form of technology that enterprise companies haven't encountered before. Emotional analytics is certainly something that most enterprises haven't created a specific budget or single group dedicated to. And so, as you know from working in the space, there's many great applications for emotion AI, from improving emotional communication understanding across people and different business functions. And we're currently working in a couple of different categories across conversational intelligence in sales, marketing, employee wellness applications. But because this is a new frontier, we found that it requires a lot more customer education to understand how and why to implement conversational analytics. So I'd love to understand how you think about proving the ROI or business case for initial pilots within new AI frontiers.
Yeah, great question. I guess two parts to the answer. First is humanize it, right? At the end of the day, you need a champion within these organizations who is going to take your product or your solution to their team and kind of almost like hang their success on the success of this pilot and the success of this technology being deployed within the organization. So I'd find that person, get to know them really well, make sure that, you know, their success is tied to your success, and do that. And we did that early on at Affectiva. Again, just referencing kind of my personal experience. We were working with WPP, which is this large advertising conglomerate. And this one guy, Graham Page, was basically tasked to evaluate these new technologies. And so his success was very much tied to how successful we were in improving kind of the use of emotion AI in this particular case, understanding audience reactions to content. He ended up, by the way, years later joining Affectiva and heading up our business development in that particular business unit. So it was great. We built a long-term relationship with him. So that's number one. Number two, I would find low-hanging proof of concepts to demonstrate the ROI of the technology. Because sometimes it requires a lot of teams and, you have to get on a team's roadmap. But if it's a small proof of concept and you can do it quickly and without a lot of investment from the organizations and but demonstrate initial success, I think that can be really helpful.
Thank you. Certainly, that's been our approach thus far. So it's glad to hear that's sort of what Affectiva followed in terms of roadmap. Second question, total pivot. It sort of has to do with striking the balance between model performance and user privacy. And you were touching on this earlier. For context on Valence, we've been able to build sort of closed loop models with specific clients and enterprises and improve accuracy based off of the context for that company. So we can fine tune our vocal tone models based off of the specific types of people that are working there and the types of conversations that they're typically having within the context of their business function. But We found that this process becomes more difficult when handling sensitive information, not only the content of conversations, but the emotions of everyone involved in that conversation, which some companies, in particular employees, find difficult to share. So it seems that there's been a bit of a trade-off between optimal model performance fine-tuned for very specific applications and data privacy, or perhaps the perception of data privacy. And so I'd love to know your approach to sort of addressing concerns with emotional data privacy, both from a company leadership and employee standpoint. Do you find that there's a conflict here, or is it really just about changing the perception of people involved?
I think there's definitely a tension. I guess I would say a lot of the times people don't know what exactly is going on, right? Like, so if you are able to partner with these organizations and almost educate them, like basically talk them through, okay, guys, this is the kind of data we're collecting. This is how it's being used. This is who has access to it. And oftentimes including them in this journey is super helpful, and partnering with them on this data, like showing them the power of the data they have, right? That they're sitting on this treasure trove, so to say. And then for the end users, the actual kind of employees, say, of an organization where this data is being collected on, providing, I think there's this cost-benefit equation that you have to really balance. Like if I'm going to share something that's super personal to me, there better be something in it for me, right? And I think balancing that, and again, having a conversation around it and being transparent about it is super important. But the good news is I think people are realizing the value of emotions, right, in the workplace and in building a relationship with your customers. So you're definitely in the we were so early. Your timing's much better.
Thank you. No, I mean, we're building off the backs of champions, so really appreciate your work in the space.
That's great.
Perfect tie-in to my final question, user buy-in and how do you influence user buy-in. So as we've discussed, many employees are rightfully wary of their communications being recorded or analyzed by employers. I think this makes sense, right? There's so many companies out there that are doing pure employee surveillance to make hire-fire decisions that aren't ultimately benefiting the direct users of the technology that are having these conversations. Our goal at Valence is to truly help people improve the flow of communication with customers, with peers, with managers, etc., across all levels of an organization. So helping sellers better understand customer needs, helping R&D teams build things that people actually want, helping employees feel more comfortable and understood at work. I think because of this, I've been really intrigued recently by this idea of surveillance. It's a concept similar to surveillance, but instead of a larger authority like an enterprise company creating a top-down analytics engine for their employees, employees are able to opt in to crowdsourcing data to build an optimized model from the ground up, with this idea that their data is directly improving their experience as a collective from using that model. So with that in mind, would love to understand how you've thought about increasing user buy-in or conveying that an AI product is actually there to help and not harm.
I love that concept of surveillance. I had not heard that word used in this way before, but I love it. And I love that it's all about empowering the end user, right? Again, like if say, for example, one use case of Valence is to allow a team to figure out the level of stress, or how is the team working together? Is it productive? Are we tackling conflict in a positive way? Is there a lot of, I don't know, passive aggression, right? Like if you're able to help and empower the team to see this data, that is so much more you'll get so much more buy-in than if it was like this manager like looking at this data and saying, you were really like negative today, right? It's the same technology, but used in a very different way. And I think you're on the right track.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
That was great. I am so grateful I have like front row seats to these types of conversations. And I have a couple of questions for you. Just a couple. So much of your work focuses on ensuring that AI systems have a certain level of emotional intelligence. For someone who's new to this AI space, which I would assume some of our audience members are, can you explain why it's so important to develop AI in a way that's empathetic and emotionally intelligent?
Yeah, AI is becoming more and more mainstream every day, and it's taking on roles that were traditionally done by humans. And so as we move into this new era into this new world, for it to be truly effective, it needs to marry your cognitive intelligence, your IQ, with your emotional and social intelligence, your EQ. And so that's what we're trying to do with some of these chatbots or AI companions or AI co-pilots. They need to have both. They need to be smart, but they also need to have context around a person's emotional experience and mental state. I actually love what Inflection AI, of course, Reed is a co-founder of the company, what they're doing, because they're basically doubling down on building empathy into Pi, which is the personal intelligence. And I think that's the way to go, honestly.
That's so interesting, because that leads me to the next question about what are you excited about, as an investor in startups that are doing some really interesting things with humanistic and emotional AI. What innovation have you seen in that space that excites you, that just makes you excited to be in this space?
Yeah, my investor kind of lens, if you like, is a little broader. So our conviction is AI is going to transform our humanity, but it also offers like a massive economic opportunity and an opportunity to solve like really big challenges in the world, but it has to be done right. And so we're doubling down on what we're calling human-centric AI, which is AI that's good for you. So AI that can help you be healthier, happier, more productive, more connected, more knowledgeable. That's one bucket. AI as it relates to sustainable living, so mitigating climate events, accelerating scientific discovery, helping with food innovation and food systems that are more sustainable. And the last bucket is ethical AI. Like, who are the startups and amazing founders who are building ethics into their AI solutions, who are building AI safety and AI governance products for the rest of the world? That's kind of the focus area. So actually, I call to action. Anybody listening in, if you are building in any of these spaces, please reach out. We'd love to support you. Right?
Put it in the chat. Right. Have them put it in the chat.
Absolutely.
Please
put
do.
It in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Well, thank you again to Chloe Duckworth from Valence Vibrations for joining us. So now it's time to move on to our next segment for the evening, and I'm really excited about this one, Rana. This is where we invite a special guest to sit down with our host for an electric back and forth conversation. There's no immediate problem we're trying to solve. This is just a space for us to lean in and get curious. For this month's Fireside Chat, we're delighted to welcome Professor Karim Lakhani from Harvard Business School. Professor Karim Lakhani is the Dorothy and Michael Hensey Professor of Business Administration at the Harvard Business School. His research focuses on the intersection of technology, innovation, AI, and company strategy. He is also the co-author of the 2020 book, Competing in the Age of AI, and he acts as an advisor to senior executives, educating them on AI strategy and technology-driven transformation. Welcome, Professor Lakhani.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here with you.
Thank you. I know you two have a lot to get into, so I'm going to hop off and rejoin later.
See you in a bit, Jodine.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Karim.
Hey, Rana. Good to see you again.
It is great to see you again. Just so the audience knows, we have some history together. So you invited me to join as an executive fellow at the Harvard Business School. We've done a little bit of teaching together, and you've been supporting a lot of my investments and my fund. So thank you for being here. My first question to you, actually, there's this myth that professors take the summer off, and it's is that true?
Well, it depends on the professor. So some are diligent at taking breaks and taking long breaks. My wife tells me that I'm failing at tenure, that I should be, calling in at noon and having a scotch every afternoon. That's not my life these days. It's, but I feel so privileged to be a faculty member at Harvard, to have the platform and the infrastructure to do incredible work and to also connect with people. And so I feel it as a responsibility to keep working, especially right now in this age.
Yeah. So I want to start by asking you, because basically you've been really looking into how AI is impacting productivity and work. So perhaps we start there. What are some of your findings?
Yeah, so, the book that we put out, that Marco Iancita and I put out in 2020 was a culmination of about 8 years of research and looking at companies and how they were organizing themselves around AI and around data. And that research really sort of, and this was pre-ChatGPT, right? This is all machine learning models, all the things you had done and so forth. And that book really showed to us that, in fact, a new form of an organization was emerging in which data and AI were at the center, and the work that was being done by these organizations was being done by the machines and not by the humans. The humans designed the machines, the humans monitored the machines, the humans updated the machines, but the work itself was being done by the machines. And in our private lives, in our consumer lives, we have this, right? When you use Uber, there's no dispatcher you're calling to connect you to it. When you get a recommendation from Netflix, there's no editor saying, Rana, these are the movies you need to watch. It's all driven by data and by machines, by AI. And that meant that a new type of an organization was coming, which scaled in a very interesting exponential way. And so the poster child for us in our book was this company out of China called Ant Group, which is a financial services provider. And the thing that stunned me, there were two facts that stunned me about them. One was, they were serving 1.2 billion users with only 15,000 employees.
It's crazy, right?
And that I mean, talk about super productivity. That is a crazy number. And when I talk to, financial institutions here in the US, they would say, well, it might take us 2 million employees to serve a billion, or maybe 10 million employees to serve a billion users, not 15,000. And what you can imagine is that every single part of the business was rethought with data and AI at the center. And so that's the one fact. The other fact about Ant was like 310. Like they said, 3 minutes to do anything on their platform, 1 minute for approval, 0 human intervention, right? And so it's like, okay, so they had this crazy metric of 310. And so I'd always joke that, my bank here in the US also has 310, but it's like 3 months, 1 month, and zero computers. And then also, but also 310 for me has become this crying call to say, what are you going to do, Mr. Executive, Miss Executive, in your business to achieve, what is your 310 equivalent, and how would you sort of rethink your business around these kinds of productivity goals that you might have?
In your book, Competing in the Age of AI, you also talk about, we all know about the economies of scale, but you talk about the economies of scope. Can you comment on that? What is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in fact, the book sort of lays out this very simple model framework that says a business is defined by two things, the business model and the operating model. And when we think about the business model, there's how you create value. So why are customers coming to you and transacting with you instead of going somewhere else? And how you capture value. And you actually want to separate those two dimensions out. There's value creation and there's value capture. And then we think about, from the operating model, the thing that actually delivers value to your customers. Then we have three dimensions. There's scale, scope, and learning. And what we see AI doing is helping you with scale, as we discussed already, but also scope. The data of one customer transaction and what they're doing can help you then imagine new use cases for you to offer to those customers. So the scope expands. Again, if you think about our consumer lives, all the different services that Google starts to offer us, all the different services that Meta offers us, and so on and so forth. That's the scope. And the same interaction then allows you to then think about the next set of things you could offer the customer. So there's economies of scope.
Which also, I think is interesting. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think it's really interesting because throughout my entire journey, founding and growing Affectiva, you always hear you should focus. Absolutely. But now with this data and economies of scope, you can be really smart and address, enter adjacent markets, right?
Exactly. And I think, of course, you want to do it sequentially, but you should be focused in on increasing scope as much as you are going to think about scale. And I think the scope allows you to serve the same customer with more things. Mm-hmm. And scope allows you to serve lots of customers. And then driving both of those is what we call learning and learning effects. That the data should help you learn continuously about what works and what doesn't work as well. And so that was the part of the story.
That was pre-ChatGPT. Yeah, exactly.
And so now, ChatGPT shows up, and when I first saw it, I was kind of stunned. is what it was doing. And the test, I remember, I used to be on Twitter a lot, and there was a whole academic Twitter, econ Twitter. And a colleague of mine, Kevin Smith in Toronto, posted that he had went to ChatGPT and 3.5 and asked it questions that he got asked in his PhD oral exams. And he goes that it answered really well. And so I did the same thing. I put the questions I got. It was as you remember, oral exams are horrendous. You know, like you get shot by 10 different other professors. They're asking you random questions. I was like asked like, how would you advise George Bush on innovation policy? I'm like, I'm studying innovation, but I'm not studying policy. But I had to come up with the anyway. So I put all these questions in, and again, I was stunned at the responses, and so I knew something interesting was going on. And immediately, I got thinking about like, look, what we need to understand is if these superpowers become available to everybody, what happens?
Right.
And the framework our team at my lab and the postdocs and that I work with has been all, and the collaborators I have, has been to sort of think about this as in terms of what it does to, if you're at a certain skill level now and now you have ChatGPT available, how does it move your skill level? What does it do for you?
Right.
And what we imagine it as a very simple, imagine it like a normal distribution or Gaussian distribution of skills, right? There's people at the average, people at the high end, people at the low end. And what we imagined was that this would shift everybody to the right. Everybody would get smarter because of this. So that was the hypothesis. And then I've been obsessed with doing studies that are very scientific when it comes to innovation. So the last 15 years, I've built a lab. We run field experiments like randomized controlled trials on innovation settings. And so we thought of ChatGPT as a drug. So let's think of it as a drug. And if you give that drug to knowledge workers, to professionals, to entrepreneurs, all of us that are listening in, what does it do to us? And so we worked with Boston Consulting Group, and we ran this experiment where we had a bunch of people get the drug and a bunch of people not get the drug. And we looked at two different types of work that consultants often did. One was more creative, problem-solving, innovation-related work, and one was more analytical work, much more like analyzing numbers and so on and so forth. And what we discovered here was both great news and bad news. The great news was that on the creative task where the AI is really good at, generative AI is really good at, your performance improved by 40%, which is kind of massive, right? 40% improvement is kind of massive, especially on a sample of elite consultants, right? Graduating from top schools. So that was like a big aha for us. At the same time, we discovered for the tasks that the AI was not good at, performance dropped. Those using AI did worse than those not using AI. And this is where it matters to us to actually have a point of view that says that it's easy for us as humans to fall asleep at the wheel. This is a line from my postdoc, Fabrizio Dell'Acqua. Fabrizio, as part of his PhD at Columbia, came in and sort of looked at what would happen to people when they were given good AI. Would they keep performing as well? And he discovered that no, that what happens is that people have a sense of like they slack a bit when it comes to with good AI, and so then they miss the edge cases that the AI misses. And so that was a big aha for us. And so, but overall, what we see is that the productivity effects are kind of massive. And we see this not just in our lab. My colleague Ayelet Israeli has a consumer intelligence lab at our institute, and she has shown that you could do consumer research with ChatGPT. You can do market research. You can get willingness to pay estimates that match real consumer data, which is quite amazing. My colleague Rem Koning in the Tech for All lab has done a project looking at entrepreneurs in like small and medium-sized entrepreneurs in Kenya. They have chicken farms, they have dairy farms, they have small tea shops and so forth. And he finds that, again, the ChatGPT has a pretty important effect on their productivity as well and their revenues if it's used correctly. So we're seeing this over and over again, that for us as knowledge workers, this is already a big boost in our productivity and things we like to do and things we don't like to do as well.
Yeah, I have so many follow-on questions, but one in particular with my investor hat on, as I'm looking at these AI native or AI first startups, do you think they'll be more capital efficient? They'll get to, say, profitability? Because it's almost like I'm seeing a dichotomy. Like some examples are like large language model companies. They're so capital intensive and it's actually not sustainable at all for they're so compute intense.
Yeah.
But perhaps some of the vertical AI solution companies perhaps they can be more capital efficient. I don't know. Do you have a point of view on that?
So many thoughts.
Okay.
So on the first, I could go on forever. So on the first thing is like, I think of this moment now as 1908. The Ford Model T has been invented. It's coming off the assembly line. But it's like the roads have not been invented. We haven't done proper engineering on the engine, on the transmission. There's no seat belts yet. Nothing, right? Literally. And over 20, 30 years, a whole bunch of infrastructure got built around to make the cars safer, cars more affordable, and so on and so forth. I think we're at the same stage with generative AI models. It is literally like 1908. It has just come out of the lab, right? And we're trying to rapidly industrialize it. Now, hopefully it doesn't take 50 years for us to invent seatbelts, right? We can do it faster. And of course, that's part of the ethical AI work that's going on everywhere, including at our institute. So I expect that we hardcore engineering on these models has not been done yet. And I think that's gonna take some time, but I expect that over time, those efficiencies will then mean less power, less data, and so forth for us to be able to get what we want out of them. The second thing that I would sort of say is that the laws of innovation can't be ignored. What we know about how innovation processes work is that when a new technology comes through, there is a massive sort of recombinant explosion of new ideas and new things that need to be done with this technology. Most of these things fail. We saw that in the auto industry. We saw that in the tires industry back when the auto. But even if you remember, do you remember all the search engines that came out? Right. Like Lycos and
Alta Vista.
Google was Alta Vista. I love Alta Vista. Exactly.
Yeah.
Excite, Ask Jeeves. There's all this innovation, and then there was a shakeout, and the shakeout was both technological based, what we call dominant design. Some dominant design shows up. So the Google dominant design of like just links and nothing else came through. And then also a business model. Conciliation, right? Which is like, okay, like we're going to make the service free, but we're going to charge advertisers for access to the eyeballs, right? Both those things will happen. And so what I imagine is that in this vertical space, we're going to still in the super early days of ferment. It will be hard to bet on the winners yet. Right? But we need to have some theses about what do we imagine dominant designs to look like? What do we imagine the business models to look like? And then go invest with those, right? So for already what we're seeing is like maybe SaaS models don't work as well as consumption models potentially for revenue. Those are all questions that I think we're sort of seeing people ask as these things start to shake out.
Yeah, amazing. Let's shift away from startups for a bit and talk about big companies, Fortune 500 companies that are trying to become AI driven. They're definitely not AI first, but they're trying to embrace AI. What, in your experience, has been, what does the journey look like? And also, can you comment on culture and the human? I remember in one of your classes, you talked about how if your org chart does not represent it doesn't have data and AI in it, like represented at the top, it's not going to happen. So tell us more about that.
So I would say at the moment, every CEO and every board wants to figure out the AI thing, but they all have very different strategies and very different perspectives about this. And I think what's happening is that there is a lack of common frameworks and common perspectives inside of a company around AI, and a ton of mythology. And so one of the things I ask, and I've done this now informally in many of my public sessions that I do, and I think my sample size now since last year is about 10,000 people or so. I ask 3 questions. I go, how many of you use ChatGPT? And everybody raises their hand, or some generative AI. Then I say, how many of you think that in the next 3 years, this is going to change your job, your career, your whatever? They go, everybody raises their hand. So I'm like 80%, 90% say they've used it, 75% to 70% say that it's going to change their job, their career, whatever. Then I ask, how many of you use these tools every day in your professional life? 10%. 10% say yes. So what I see is there's a massive knowing doing gap, right? A lot of people sort of know that's important, know it's going to change, but nobody's actually doing it. It's kind of like, teenagers and sex, right? Everybody talks about it, but nobody's actually doing it, right?
I hope my son's not doing it.
Exactly, right? But that's the point, right? Like, I think the issue is that a lot of people are talking, there's so much hype, but the number of people doing it is actually very low. And what I'm afraid about is that that's going to create an AI divide amongst companies. We used to talk about digital divides amongst citizens. I think there's going to be an AI divide amongst companies. And what I try to do when I work with executives and when we have people come to our campus or when I'm doing stuff in private is like throw them into working with ChatGPT so they can actually see what these tools do and how they solve problems, because that's the only way their minds will open up. But so at the moment, I would sort of say is that only a few companies get it and only a few companies are investing a ton in making it happen. The rest are still in like, security mode, governance mode, which are all important, which need to be done. But I think it's coming at the expense of not really rethinking your work and your processes to make this happen. And then that connects back to the culture. So there's an observation in computer science and in engineering known as Conway's Law, that the design of your technical architecture mirrors the design of your organizational architecture. So if your technical architecture is siloed, you have silos across your business units, you have silos in data sharing, you have all this overhead in terms of people being able to share knowledge and ideas and so forth, then that's gonna reflect your technological architecture and your organizational architecture. And what we know from the development of AI and this notion of AI factories is that they want lots of data. The data has to cut across the entire enterprise and it's just fit across. And that the siloizations work against what the economies of scale, scope, and learning are in an AI factory. And so the biggest challenge we sort of see, we have this rule that says 30-70. 30% is tech and it's declining, and 70% is culture and organizations. And this culture and organizations actually has to be from the top down. Like the executives, the board members, the CEOs have to believe in this, and then it has to then filter all the way down to the frontline workers along the way. And that's the only way we'll sort of see this actually take hold. But I'm actually worried about this divide between Fortune 500, between Fortune 1,000 companies.
And then at the individual level,
which by the way, that creates opportunity for entrepreneurs.
Absolutely,
right? Because if you can imagine new ways to do business at a much faster, cheaper way,
right?
What would the Ant Group be for consumer packaged goods? What would the Ant Group be for a whole range of industries?
Everything.
Right. And so I think that's the interesting thing. We've seen hints of this, like Moderna, and I'm an advisor to them. Moderna, as it's done in the pharmaceutical space, Tesla, and the automobile industry. Right. You're sort of seeing early examples, and what I imagine is that the next decade is going to create a whole range of entrepreneurial opportunities as well for entrepreneurs to go compete against the big guys and see what they can do.
So if you're not an executive or a CEO at a company and you're not ready to jump on an entrepreneurial journey, what advice would you give kind of our listeners on how to be smart in this human AI collaboration? How to be like partner smartly with AI?
Yeah. Well, first, look, you have to sort of respect your company's policies about the use of these tools and so forth. But I would put myself on the bleeding edge inside of your company and take on projects that make sense of this. Raise your hand and say, pick me, coach. I'm ready to dive in. Second thing is start using this. Many companies have come out now have generative AI tools available through their various enterprise accounts. Start using them and use it for your work. Become an expert yourself. I've become an expert in this, both from I've got all my degrees and blah, 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 and my knowledge, but my best tutors have been on YouTube. Right? On how to prompt, what to do things. And I spend more time now watching, YouTube than, Game of Thrones, and so the point being that there's a ton of really great content out there that people have done and people have created. And this is an amazing opportunity for you to go try it and use it. And, the analogy I try to use is the one that comes from Steve Jobs, right? He called the computer a bicycle for the mind. in the 80s. And the bicycle helped humanity go further and faster. And the question is, I think now with ChatGPT, this bicycle for the mind has truly arrived. This is a cognitive boost for us. We can go further and faster, but we need to learn how to balance the bike. When we learn how to ride the bike, right, you fell down, you got a concussion, you got, scraped knees and bloody elbows and so forth. You had to wear a helmet, right? And so there is a learning journey, which is going to be which will be difficult, but requires investment. My friend Ethan Mollick says you need 10 hours. I think you need about 40 hours. But 40 hours over a month is doable, right? It's 5 hours on a Saturday, 5 hours on a Sunday for a month. Do the work and get it going. But apply it to your work, and then raise your hand in your organization to take on those projects.
I love the raising the hand, because a lot of even Smart Eye, the company that acquired my company Affectiva, like, we are an AI company, but we're still having to figure out like how much on the bleeding edge do we want to be versus, thoughtful and intentional about like the risks we're taking. And I think the folks who have raised their hand, whether on the engineering and, software side or on the marketing team, like the folks who have raised their hand to embrace these technologies are definitely well positioned to keep because it's moving so fast too, right?
Exactly. And Mary Erdos, who's on our advisory council, she's the CEO of JP Morgan Wealth Management. She says there's a first mover advantage in adoption. And I truly believe that. It's not a winner take all business. These things are first mover advantages because this rate is so fast. So the more you wait, the further behind you are. But if you sort of keep up with the wave, right, then you're keeping up, and catch up won't be as hard.
So as we start wrapping up, I know you're about to launch a new course at Harvard. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So I'm launching it's a reboot of a course that we have a course on data science for managers. And I'm working with our faculty, and it's a required course for all 1,000 MBA students. It's called Humans Leading with Data and AI. And the idea is that all MBAs, all business folks need to have the foundations of how AI work, and starting with, like statistics, and then moving on to algorithms, and then moving on to AI factories and what it means for transformation. Cool. And that you don't need to be a statistician, you don't need to be an AI engineer, but you need to know how these systems work and where they work and where they don't work. And my dean, Shrikant Datar, is an accountant. Nobody will ever sign up to take an accounting course if it was optional, right? But we teach accounting because it's important for business people to understand how books come together, how these things come together. So same as our view about AI, you don't have to be an AI technologist to understand the role of AI in your business and what it means for us. And so we're launching this course, we're rebooting this course, we're calling it Humans Leading with Data and AI. But the thing we're doing is that we're actually using generative AI at the core of it. So there's going to be a core spot where all the stuff we teach is going to be available for students. All of the statistical analysis that we'll be doing and all the models we'll be building will be on ChatGPT, because we want to equip our students to be able to enter the world with knowledge and confidence about how these tools work, what their limitations are, what the opportunities are, but also real hands-on experience in building, GPTs, building bots and all that kind of stuff to solve business problems as well. So
I love it.
It launches in the spring of next year. I better get going and get to work because there's a lot to do.
It sounds awesome. I have major FOMO. Okay, last question. What are you most excited about as it relates to AI?
Look, I'm a eternal techno optimist, and there's a false dichotomy going on about technology and humans, which I think is wrong. Humans have always used technology, from fire to the wheel to agriculture. We've always built technology. That's what humans do. To be human is to be a technologist. And this is just another new toolkit in our capability. But now this toolkit is actually giving us cognitive superpowers. And so I feel like we're entering a very new age with these tools and these capabilities. And my hope is that this is not just limited to the elites, but everybody gets access to this and benefits from that. So I'm actually super excited about how we will use these cognitive tools. When people wear glasses the example I give is that glasses were invented about 300, 400 years ago. And before that, if you didn't have glasses, you were functionally blind in society and you were knocked out. Glasses changed the lives of people that have bad eyes. Same thing with hearing aids, right? Hearing aids are actually really important for elderly for cognition purposes. If an elderly person is losing their hearing, then they're also going to experience cognitive decline, and you should really insist for your grandparents and so forth or your parents to actually get hearing aids. I'm in that conversation with my mother right now. Mom, put on your hearing aid.
Put it right.
But it's a cognitive tool. Glasses are a cognitive tool. Hearing aids are a cognitive tool. These are a cognitive tool as well. But now we can do so much more, and that's what I'm excited about.
Love that. We could go on forever, but it was great catching up with you. Thank you for making
Rana.
time for us. So inspiring as always.
Thank you so much.
Professor Karim, you just made me such an optimist, especially when you said the glasses, because as blind as I am, I forget about the advancement we make in technology to be a human being. And so thank you for bringing that perspective to this conversation.
Happy to do it.
Yeah, I love the line to be a humanist, to be a humanist is to be a technologist. I love it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I got to use that one. But thank you so much for being here, Professor Karim. Thank you. We appreciate you joining us. It's been such a pleasure. And Rana, again, always, always, always. But Rana, don't leave because I want to ask you a couple of questions. The chat has been blazing, and I think we have time for one question. Do you think we have time for a question?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, I'm going to look to the side here because I'm looking at the chat. And Steve Greider asked, what I'd like to know is how to utilize AI for marketing versus the ton of money that he gives to Google for advertising.
Oh, there is a lot of ways to use AI for marketing. Everything from creating your first drafts to partnering on content creation, be it text, be it images, being it even video, really getting to personalize your messages to your audiences. You can leverage AI to do that. Yeah, so lots of ways.
So good. I'm going to just do one more and then we'll wrap it up and then I'll let you go. And this one comes to us from Trisha. She asked, from an ARS Techno story this week. Oh, this is interesting. ARS Techno story this week. Japanese company SoftBank announced that it's developing an emotion canceling technology. Have you heard of this? Powered by AR. It's powered by AI that will alter the voices of angry customers to sound calmer during phone calls with their customer service representatives. The goal is to reduce the burden on workers. And I'm so curious on your thoughts on using AI to actually dull out emotions in this way to make a healthy environment for workers. Have you heard? Oh, this is so
wild. I'll have to look into that. Exactly. It is actually really stressful for customer service representatives. It's a really tough job, and there's a lot of companies that are working on bringing emotion AI to help customer service representatives do their work better. But that's interesting, to dampen the emotion. I don't know if that's helpful though, because you'll just end up with happier employees, but really, really, really angry customers, right?
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what I think about that. It's kind of interesting. I'll have to look into that more. It does bring up some ethical considerations too, right? When can you amplify or should you be allowed to amplify or dampen my emotional expression in whatever context, right? It's how I'm feeling. I don't want to be canceled. I don't want my emotions to be canceled. It might work for dating apps though. That's a good killer app for it. Anyway.
I love that. More to come on that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Rana. You've been such a great host. I can't believe it's already time to say goodbye.
Thank you. This was wonderful. Thank you for having me. And thank you for all our guests and questions. They were great.
Absolutely. Well, I know I'll be seeing you a little bit more in the future because you're now part of the Masters of Scale team. So I wish you a good night.
Thank you.
This show really flew by, but don't forget to stick around until the very end because we still got that special giveaway from Capital One Business coming your way. So, all right, We've been hyping it up all evening. It's time for a special giveaway for all of you in the chat today. Back again for this special announcement is David Rafkin, who's the Executive Vice President at Capital One Business. David, throwing to you.
Thank you, Jodine. Capital One Business has really loved being a part of these live strategy sessions for the past 3 years. Watching this community of business leaders learn, discover, and grow together, it's been such a treat. This year, we're also excited for the return of the Masters of Scale Summit on October 23rd and 24th. It's a 2-day live accelerator for fast-scaling companies with a remarkable list of guest speakers sharing invaluable learnings. As a special gift for our strategy session attendees today, Capital One is giving everyone here a free live stream ticket to attend Summit 2024 virtually. Look for details in your inbox. We really hope you'll join us. Jodine, back to you.
Yes, you heard that right. Free live stream tickets to the Masters of Scale Summit 2024. Look for that in your email this coming Monday. And I'll remember these names in the chat, and I expect to see each and every one of you again in October. Believe me, you're not going to want to miss this. Thank you so much, Capital One. Now, let's take a moment to shout out the people who make Strategy Session possible. First, thank you to the entire team at Capital One Business for being such stellar premier brand partners and such wonderful co-hosts in this live event space. A huge thank you to Professor Karim Lakhani for joining our fireside chat. Of course, a big thank you to our guest host this month, Rana el Kaliouby. Thank you to Chloe Duckworth from Valence Vibrations for taking part in our workshop. And a big thank you to the entrepreneurs who sent in their rapid fire questions, Yinka and Jano. Thank you to the entire Masters of Scale team for putting this event together with our live events producer, Chineme Ezequena, and our partners at Brand Live. Please follow Masters of Scale on your preferred social platform. And I'd like to announce that our sister show, Rapid Response, now has its own feed. Host Bob Safian shares firsthand knowledge from business leaders on top issues twice a week. Find it on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe. Just look for Rapid Response. Thank you to all of you for joining wherever you are, whatever time zone. We appreciate you being here and to learn and scale with us. I'm Jodine Dorsey. It's been a pleasure hosting you. Keep networking in the chat, and we look forward to meeting you all soon.
What's said at the summit stays at the summit.
Everybody will have to pay attention.
Almost no one sees this coming. Those founders are becoming more globally ambitious. They're coming after your talent, your capital, your market share.
The difficulty is when a team has been working so hard on one thing.
If you are trying to use your time and your talent and your money in the service of others, the work will never end.
We have to deal with inequities.
It's different if you're a founder, but when you walk into something so big and so perfect and so successful, it's not about me. It's about me becoming a part of it and just evolving it and making it better.
The thing that I love about it, and that makes me so optimistic, is that it's just creating more dialogue.
I'm here to tell you that, wow, human innovation's incredible.
This is Masters of Scale Summit.